What is going on, y'all? I want to thank you for joining us here on the Mission Ready Men briefing on the SHR Media Network. Today is Tuesday, January 21st, and we are back, baby. Yes, yesterday was the inauguration of our 47th president, and he is now the president again, and it's almost like a weight has been lifted off. So we're going to spend much of the hour today, if not all of it, talking about the events of yesterday, his speech, which was epic, his executive orders, pardons, and not just his. The confirmations and more if we have time, if I don't spend too much time bloviating about everything. But before we do get into that, please do me a favor and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to all the channels in the SHR Media Network. And if I say something you don't like, leave a comment. If I say something you agree with, leave a comment. Share this video, share all of our episodes, because apparently the comments and the engagement is what the algorithm is now looking for, and we know that they are using that algorithm even now to try and suppress us. We'll see what his executive order, if that changes anything, but we'll get into that later. But also, after you, or even before you like and share and subscribe, pray for us. Pray for Mission Ready Men. Pray for Sackhead Sean at the Edge of Liberty. Pray for Jersey Joe and the Reaver of Common Sense. Pray for BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Pray that we all have a breakthrough in 2025. Pray that we all start to reach many more people, reach the masses, because we want to spread the word, and we have a unique perspective that that needs to be heard. So thank you again for joining us here on the SHR Media Network, and you can follow this show on all the socials. Mission Ready Men at Mission Ready Men on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Even TikTok, even now that TikTok is back, and we might get into that a little bit as well, and Truth Social as well. But now that we have all of that squared away, let's get after it. Now, we all know yesterday was Inauguration Day. It was a long day. There was so much. I mean, it was tough for me to figure out exactly what all we were going to talk about here today, because there was so much stuff that we could get into. And these next 4 years, as as terrible as they're going to be for leftists who just hate America and have acute TDS, it's going to be a boon for us, because there is not going to be a shortage of content for us to get into at all. So with that, let's get into the some of the events of the day. And apparently my sound isn't working quite right, so let's see if we can correct that. And hopefully that takes care of it. My software hasn't been cooperating lately. Hopefully that takes care of it. All right, moving on. The inauguration, and what I wanted to get into first was his speech. His speech was epic. His speech was one of the best speeches, I've heard from anyone in the political space in a very long time. And what made it even better was that he was lowering the boom on Biden and Harris.
and they had to sit there and take it, and that was awesome to watch. Oh my goodness, that was absolutely amazing to watch. And 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 I don't know what I'm sure you've seen the viral clip. I don't have it prepared. I might get to it when Barron Trump is leaving and he whispers something to Biden, and the look on Biden's face just immediately changes. And I really want to know what Barron said to him, because it was amazing. But anyway, let's get into Trump's speech, because like I said, it was pretty epic. And this first clip, and for some reason, it hasn't actually been broken down into clips that I can find. So I have the whole speech queued up, and we're just going to go through some of the spots that I have marked. And so bear with me if it's not completely clean when we stop and start here. But this first one that I want to get to, it was right at the beginning of his speech, and it just set the tone for everything that would come. So here we are at 1 minute in. Check this out.
From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
Amen. That is what we want. That is what we want. We want someone who is going to put America first, and he pledged to do it. And I believe him. And I have seen so many people just losing their minds right now, calling him all kinds of racist and fascist, and just the same thing they've been doing. Just now they're crying about it because he's back in the Oval Office. But let me just put this out there. If Trump is a racist, he is doing it all wrong. He has Black women in high levels of his organization. He has had multiple Black people, men and women, in high levels in his organization, in his business and in the administration. He acknowledged Byron Donalds at the parade yesterday. Had nothing but good things to say about him. If he was such a racist, would he have had an all-Black marching band at the parade? Absolutely not. It just defies all logic that these people. It's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, that's a tangent I didn't want to get into right now. But there's a few more clips I want to get into from that speech. And because it's not really clipped properly, or because it hasn't been broken down, at least that I can find, like I said, I'm just going through and just scrolling through. I find the clips that I mark. So here's another one that I want to share with you. And check this one out.
Indeed, their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over.
Nice.
Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied. and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
That's right. That is right. I believe that. I said that from the moment I realized he survived that assassination attempt, that was ordained by God. And here we are. Despite all of the concerns about his safety and questions about the Secret Service's competence when it comes to keeping him safe, with all the active threats that he has, he's here, and I think that God's hand of protection is on him, and I believe that it is going to be a great a great 4 years. And there's a few other clips that I want to get to, because before I actually do move on to that, the implications in everything that he's saying in front of Biden and Harris is that everything that you've been doing has failed. You're incompetent. It is absolutely glorious to watch. And I don't know about you. I've listened to that speech a couple of times now, and it gets better. It gets better every single time. And I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people that I've seen have said that was at least one of his best speeches. I think it's one of the best speeches that I've seen in the political arena in a long time. But it was definitely one of his. And so here's another clip that I wanted to share with you. And like I said, it just keeps getting better.
America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have: the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world.
And that was another nice dig at Biden, because the first the first thing he did when he took office 4 years ago was basically destroy our energy independence, because we were a net exporter of liquid natural gas and oil, and he just destroyed that. And that was the beginning of a downward spiral for 4 years that culminated in President Trump getting reelected.
We will be a rich nation, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal, and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate.
Yes.
saving our auto industry, and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
I mean, this whole mandate thing is, the left loves mandates. They love to tell people you must do X for the good of the people or something. I mean, it's just, liberty is a foreign concept to them. Liberty and freedom is anathema to them. It's completely foreign to them. They have no idea what to do with it. And since they have no idea what to do with it, they don't want you to have any part of it either. So getting rid of the EV mandate, and leaving the liberty part of it aside, which is a big part of it, but just practically speaking, electric vehicles are too heavy for our infrastructure right now. The cost of repair for the batteries, if something were to go wrong, is astronomical, is worth more. What is it, $20,000 for a replacement battery in some of these electric vehicles? It's just ridiculous. Nobody can afford that. Even people who own these things, when I've talked to a few of them, and even when they talk about the possibility of having to replace a battery, they'll just end up getting rid of the vehicle. It's stupid. Absolutely stupid. Which basically is the left's stock trade. They're morons. All right, I got a couple of more clips from that speech, and I'll have a link to the entire speech in the show notes so that you can actually listen to it yourself if you haven't already. I imagine if you're watching or listening to this, you probably already are quite familiar with it. But here's one more. Well, actually, I got a couple more, but here's one that I wanted to share with you.
I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
Nice. And he's got all the tech tyrants behind him.
Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. Something I know something about.
Yeah, you do.
We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities.
There you go.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life.
Here it comes.
We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
And there it is. The fact that that needs to be articulated as a policy of the United States government is a very sad commentary on where we are. Because elementary school kids used to learn this difference 5 minutes ago. It was just accepted. There was no need for any of this nonsense. Yet here we are. We have the President of the United States in an inauguration speech saying that is now going to be the policy of the United States government going forward. What? What? It's so stupid that we even have to have this conversation. But here we are. All right. You know what? Before we move on, I'm just going to get a quick word in with our sponsor, and our sponsor today is Patriot Mobile. And Patriot Mobile is, we switched to Patriot Mobile not too long ago, and we absolutely love it. When we talk to customer service, we talk to somebody who's actually right here in Texas, and we can understand every word they say, and they're extremely helpful. And it's just nice to talk to somebody who actually shares our values, because it is more important now than ever to support companies and organizations that share our values, that share our pro-life values, that share our Second Amendment values, because the votes, as important as they are not enough. Patriot Mobile not only shares our beliefs, but they actually do something about it. They are down on the border trying to help these kids who have been trafficked over the border. They're in the 2A community and trying to advance our Second Amendment rights. They are doing the work. They're not just taking our money. They're taking our money and doing the work that we want them to do. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless carrier, and they donate a portion of every dollar to organizations that fight for causes that you and I care about. So switch to patriotmobile.com now and get a free month of service with the offer code Jackson. Go to patriotmobile.com, use promo code Jackson. Visit patriotmobile.com/Jackson today. All right. There is there's a lot more for us to get into, and I really want to try and get into it, because aside from his epic speech, he signed some epic executive orders, and I'm going to have a link to the full list of executive orders in the show notes. But there's a few that I really wanted to highlight here. And the first one is one that we kind of just touched on with his comment in that speech. The first executive order that we're going to talk about is defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. That's a mouthful, but it has to be. And actually, that's the wrong one that I'm looking at right here. Well, before we get into that one, he did a few others that that I find to be, the gender ideology thing is important. Do not get me wrong. But he signed a number of executive orders having to do with the border. And the first one of my favorites, is designating cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations. And that should have been done a long time ago. And these cartels, a lot of these cartel operatives were Mexican military, and the Mexican military and special forces were trained by us. They're a paramilitary all the different cartels are paramilitary organizations. And to expect the federales in Mexico, to expect 2- and 3-man sheriff's departments on the border to deal with this is unrealistic. And one of the things that he does by designating cartels and these organizations as terrorist groups is it opens him up to access funds to send the military down to deal with these threats. The cartels, for all intents and purposes, control the border. The Border Patrol, they do what they can, but they've had their hands tied up until yesterday. And so with President Trump doing this on day one, he has sent a signal that we are not going to tolerate this nonsense anymore. We're not going to tolerate human trafficking on our border. We're not going to tolerate fentanyl coming across our border. We're not going to tolerate any of this. And since they are now designated as terrorist organizations, we can hit them with the whole truckload. And I am really hoping that we do. And another one of another one of the executive orders that he signed was he declared the situation at the southern border an invasion. And a lot of these all go hand in hand, and it's just it's promises made, promises kept. He said he was going to do this stuff, and he is absolutely doing it. And well, it's actually a proclamation that he did with the declaring the southern border situation an invasion. That's a proclamation, but that also carries a significant amount of weight. It doesn't have like a force of law or anything like that, but it does, like I said before, send a signal that we're not going to deal with this nonsense anymore. And he says that this proclamation is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, entities, officers, blah, blah, blah. That's acknowledging that it doesn't have the force of law behind it, but it is something that we need to take seriously, and he's taken it seriously. He's taken it seriously as we are, because we voted him in. And he signed a number of others for securing the border and yeah, let's take a look at that one real quick, because that one is another one, and that one actually is an executive order. And the policy of this particular executive order, securing our borders, that's the name of it. And like I said, I'm going to have a link to this entire list. And it's not just these border orders, but it's a full list of everything that he signed that they've been able to get up on the website. He signed a bunch, and they're not all up there yet, but they will be. But let me see if I can find the policy in this one. Some of these are really long. But the purpose of this particular one is, well, let me just read it. Over the past 4 years, the United States has endured a large-scale invasion at an unprecedented level. True. Millions of illegal aliens from nations and regions all around the world have successfully entered the United States where they are now residing, including potential terrorists, foreign spies, members of cartels, gangs, and violent transnational criminal organizations like Tren de Aragua, MS-13. And because we have limited information on the whereabouts of these people, that cannot stand. He says, a nation without borders is not a nation, and the federal government must act with urgency and strength to end the threats posed by an unsecure border. I mean, this is really common sense. And he mentioned that in his speech, that we were going to return to common sense. The only way that any of this happens, none of what happened the past 4 years happens by accident. It was purposeful. You don't do that much damage. And I've said this before, you don't do that much damage by accident. Because if it was an accident, if it was unintentional, then once you saw some of the negative effects of the policies, you would reverse them. But because they didn't reverse anything, because they doubled down on a lot of the nonsense that they did over the past 4 years, the only conclusion you can come to is that they did it on purpose. If you can think of another explanation, be my guest. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. But I don't see how it could have been anything but purposeful. And the policy of this one is to take all appropriate action to secure the borders of our nation. And then he goes through a number of means by which they plan on doing that. Deterring and preventing the entry of illegal aliens, detaining, removing promptly, pursuing criminal charges against illegal aliens who violate immigration laws. I mean, why this has to be an executive order to enforce laws that are already on the books is mystifying to me. I don't get it. I mean, I do get it. I know why. It's because the left has been so lax, and the left has been so, not even lax. They just threw the door open. They just threw the door open and said, come on in. And so now Trump and a common sense approach to the border has to be undertaken and actually put into writing and put into policy. But why we're here is just truly, it's infuriating. It's beyond mystifying. It's just infuriating that we're here, that we have to do this. One of the other executive orders that he signed was restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. And it's another one of these things that shouldn't have to be done, yet here we are. We shouldn't have to reiterate in an executive order that the First Amendment is essential to the success of our republic. We shouldn't have to have an executive order that prohibits the federal government from trying to censor people. Because the leftist government has such a, well, they have a need for power and control. They have a thirst for power and control. And whenever something happens where the information that's out there, when that contradicts their narrative, when that threatens their grip on power and control, then they have to go about silencing you. And they, for some reason, Well, we really just talked about the reason. They need power and control. But they think the American people are stupid. They don't trust the American people to be able to discern the truth. Well, actually, maybe they do. Maybe they realize that the American people are really not as stupid as they wish we were, and because of that, they have to control the flow of information. I think that might be what it is. Because if the American people have all of the facts, and I understand that when it comes to stuff like the pandemic, things change when there's more information to be had and stuff like that. I get that. But when the American people have all the information and we have the ability to see it, to understand it, to analyze it, the chances are that we're not going to come down on the side of the left. We're not going to come down on the side of infringing on our own liberty. We're not going to come down on the side of lockdowns. We're not going to come down on the side of mandates. We're going to come down on the side of, okay, this is the situation, and this is what I think is best for me and my family, especially for those of us who are Christians and seek God and seek his guidance for things like that. When we're going to pray about it and we're going to go where the Lord leads us. And the left simply cannot have that. They cannot have that. Because as far as they're concerned, their gods, their religion is climate change. Their religion is gender ideology, gender confusion. And anything that goes against their religion must be crushed. And that's why we now have an executive order restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. Just like I said at the beginning, it's sad that we're actually at a point where these types of things have to be articulated. It's sad that we let it get this far. It really is. All right, I wanted to get to one other thing, but it's does cooperating with me. So maybe we'll come back to it, maybe not. I'm sure we'll be able to get into it in the days and weeks to come, because not going to be, like I said, there's not going to be any shortage of content for us to get into. And I'm sure these are it's going to be ongoing for the next 4 years. So I'm really not worried about it. All right, you know what? Now here it is. Let's do this real quick and get into the one of the clips that I showed you in his speech, defending women from gender ideology and restoring biological truth to the federal government. Again, why? It's like I said before, I understand why we're here, but at the same time, I'm mystified that we are here. It doesn't make any sense. If it makes sense to you, please enlighten me as to how, because we've all known since the beginning of time that there was a difference between men and women. And men are bigger, stronger, faster, more aggressive than women. And a man can't magically become a woman and a woman can't magically become a man, but yet here we are. And in this executive order, it states the purpose is that across the country, ideologues who deny biological reality of sex have increasingly used legal and other socially coercive means to permit men to self-identify as women and gain access to intimate single-sex spaces and activities designed for women, including women's sports. From women's domestic abuse shelters to women's workplace showers, this is wrong, obviously. Efforts to eradicate the biological reality of sex fundamentally attack women by depriving them of their dignity, safety, and well-being. Absolutely, 100%. The erasure of sex in language and policy has a corrosive impact, not just on women, but on the validity of the entire American system. Basing federal policy on truth is critical to scientific inquiry, public safety, morale, and trust in government itself. Trust in government is gone. Biden and his administration, they took care of that. They took care of that completely. Nobody trusts the government anymore. And even though we now have the Trump administration, it's only been 2 days. And we saw what happened last time. Now he is surrounding himself with people who he trusts. He is surrounding himself with people who support his agenda, but there are still thousands of people in the bureaucracy that hate him and will try and sabotage these efforts. Of that, I have no doubt. And that includes trying to thwart the gender ideology aspect of things. And he states in this policy that it is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female. These sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. Reality is something that escapes the left. They do not live in reality. They do not live in reality whatsoever. And he goes on to say, under my direction, the executive branch will enforce all sex protective laws to promote this reality, and the following definition shall govern all executive interpretation of application of federal law and administration policy. And he goes on to define sex, women, men, female, male, gender ideology. You need to take a look at it because it's great, but it's also really ridiculous that we even need this. But I really wanted to touch on that before we moved on. And I want to move on now to the pardons, and not just the pardons of the J6 hostages, as Trump likes to call them, which is an accurate description. Biden also issued a number of pardons, and he pardoned his entire family. He pardoned not just Hunter, but he pardoned James Biden, Sarah Jones Biden, which is James Biden's wife, I believe, Valerie Biden, his sister, Valerie Biden Owens, John T. Owens, her husband, and Francis Biden, which is another one of Joe Biden's brothers. And let's take a look at it so you can see exactly what we're looking at. It's a pretty simple one-page proclamation, executive grant of clemency. And he grants them a pardon for any nonviolent offenses against the United States which may have been committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through the date of this pardon. Why such a long period of time? 11 years. Again, that was a period of time with Hunter as well. And there are some reasons that I haven't fully researched, so I'm not going to get into it right now. But there are some very interesting reasons why he did this, and we'll probably get into that a little bit next week. But it wasn't that long ago when they were telling us, when they were floating the possibility of Trump preemptively pardoning his children, which was ridiculous and wasn't going to happen. But when they were talking about that, they were saying that that there was no if you haven't done anything wrong, there's no reason for a preemptive pardon. Yet here we are now with Biden issuing preemptive pardons for all of his cronies. And I think I have a clear of, oh yeah, this is great. This one is awesome. Jamie Raskin, who was one of the people who actually, you know what? Before we do that one, let's get into this one, because this one is Joyless Reed talking to Adam Schiff, and then it goes into another 3 minutes. We're not going to play all of them, but they're talking about preemptives and whether or not these preemptive pardons are an admission of guilt or whatever the case may be. So let's take a listen to this nonsense real quick.
Ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime, who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. If you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
If he pardons people preemptively, he's essentially telling the public that these people have committed crimes. And we may not be aware of what they are, but the pardon is clear evidence that crimes have been committed.
I imagine if he decides to issue these preemptive pardons, it will be cast in a way that he is protecting his family and protecting their reputations from, villainous exterior forces that are against him.
First off, we should just take a deep breath and acknowledge the audacity of a president who's so clearly concerned about his own criminal culpability and that of his family members that pardons are a major obsession with him.
The idea.
Wow. And that was all talking about Trump. If you didn't know that, if you didn't know they were talking about Trump, if you didn't know that those were 4 years old, you would think that they were talking about Biden and the and the preemptive pardons that he just issued. And the Supreme Court actually, and Biden's own Justice Department said that accepting a pardon is by definition an admission of guilt. the Supreme Court in a case back in, actually, I think it goes back to when Gerald Ford pardoned Nixon. There was a Supreme Court case around that, which said that accepting the pardon is an admission of guilt, and Biden's own Justice Department said that not too long ago. So, what are they guilty of? Well, of course, they're guilty of everything that we know that they're guilty of, everything that came out over the past 4 years. And now they've been pardoned. And there are some questions, some people have raised some questions that because they haven't been convicted of anything, there may not be any validity to these pardons. One other person that actually was pardoned by Biden was General Mark Milley, and that guy's a traitor. That guy's a traitor, and he was just pardoned by Biden. And I'm going to play you a little clip of evidence that that Milley is in fact a traitor.
Chinese thought wrongly that the United States was going to attack them. I am certain, guaranteed certain, that President Trump had no intent to attack. And it was my task to make sure I communicated that. And the purpose was to de-escalate, calm things down.
You shared all that earlier, I understand.
And as part of that,
just say, did you or did you not tell him that if we were going to attack, you would let him know?
as part of that conversation, I said, General Lee, there's not going to be a war. There's not going to be attack between great powers. And if there was, the tensions would build up. There'd be calls going back and forth from all kinds of senior officials. I said, hell, General Lee, I'll probably give you a call, but we're not going to attack you. Trust me, we're not going to attack you. These are two great powers, and I am doing my best to transmit the president's intent, President Trump's intent, to ensure that the American people are protected from an incident that could escalate.
Now, this guy, he doesn't know what President Trump's intent was, because he did everything he could to, he hid the nuclear codes from Trump at one point. And we just heard him say that he contacted his counterpart in China and told them that we weren't going to attack. Did that behind President Trump's back without his knowledge whatsoever. I mean, this guy, he hated Trump. It was obvious. And he was a traitor. And even though he's been pardoned, he can still be court-martialed. And I really hope that actually happens. All right, real quick. We'll run out of time here. All right, real quick. Marco Rubio has been confirmed as Secretary of State, so he can start working on Trump's agenda. He was confirmed 99-0. That's a little concerning. There weren't any objections to his taking that spot. I was never a huge fan of Marco Rubio. He's been saying all the right things lately. I hope that means that signals an actual change of heart. But I'm not sure I really trust him. I saw a comment earlier today where somebody said they've been trying to get him out of Florida and Trump found a way to do it. And now he can just fire him. We'll see. We'll see if that's actually what happens. I don't want it to happen. What I want to happen is for Marco Rubio to actually carry out an America first foreign policy. And if he does that, I'll be happy. If he does that, great. We'll see. Pete Hegseth was voted out of committee, so now it's on to the full Senate vote. we'll see if that actually happens. It should. I guarantee you he won't sail through 99 to nothing. I guarantee that won't happen. But I fully expect him to get confirmed, hopefully today or tomorrow. And then we're waiting on Pam Bondi and all the other ones. We'll see how they all need to be confirmed. They all need to be confirmed, and so that they can get right to work. So we'll see. The Laken Riley Act. The Laken Riley Act was passed by the Senate and should be heading to the president's desk. If it's not there, it should be there later today. And I fully expect, obviously, Trump to sign it. 12 Democrats voted to pass it. These 12 Democrats are up for re-election in the next cycle. Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, the two senators from Georgia. If they weren't going to be up for re-election this cycle, I guarantee you they would have voted against it. Guaranteed. The fact that any Democrat, any leftist would vote against this act, it defies all logic. It defies all common sense, because all it does is make sure that any illegal alien who commits a crime is detained and then deported. I'm oversimplifying it, and I have a link to the actual text of the bill in the show notes so you can read it for yourself. But that's the gist. And yet there's leftists out there saying that it makes us less safe. I don't know. These next 4 years hopefully will eradicate a lot of this leftist nonsense out of the public consciousness and bring back, like Trump said, an era of common sense. Because, wow, some of the things that these people come up with is just beyond ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. And I really don't understand how we fell this far, this fast. Well, I do, because I mentioned it before, on purpose. It was done purposefully. And we allowed it to happen. So now, with Trump in office, we can start to reverse some of that. Anyway, folks, I think that's going to do it, because I could go on for another hour about some of the stuff I wanted to talk about. Next time, we will get into the January 6th hostage pardons. Steve Baker, Enrique Tarrio. We'll get into the, hopefully by the next time we're together, we'll be able to say that a lot of the pro-lifers like Beverlyn Williams, who's been locked up for praying outside of an abortion clinic, a baby killing clinic, hopefully we'll be able to say the next time we're together that they've all been released. And so we'll get into that next time. But that's all I got for you now. I will try to do better the next time. Please remember to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to all the SHR media channels, the Edge of Liberty, Reaver of Common Sense, BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Subscribe, share, because we want to continue to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. We want to spread the message of Christian-based conservatism and hope and liberty. We want to spread it to as many people as we possibly can and preserve it for future generations. Also, if you like the shirt I'm wearing, I know you can't really see it. We're working on getting the camera angle and everything all set up. But this is January 20th, 2025, Take Back America. So if you like this shirt, if you want to check them all out, head over to NereadyMen.com and click Shop 7 Armors and check out this design and all the other great designs that we have there. But as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.
you.